love our music. Welcome to Hello Chaos, a weekly podcast exploring the messy and chaotic minds and lives of founders, entrepreneurs, and innovators. Every week, we talk to founders from different industries at different company levels and stages of all shapes and sizes. And we get to hear the real, the raw, and the unbiased founder stories. It's why our mantra is where aha meets oh shit. We drop new episodes every Sunday so founders can tune into us for tips and insights and strategies on not just growing their business, but ways on being a better owner, better leader, better connected into the community. HelloCast is one of the many resources brought to you by OrangeWIP. That is OrangeWIP, WIP for work in progress. We are a multimedia company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We've designed hyper-local platforms that inform, inspire, and create connections that help founders succeed. Our innovative digital zines are an all in one content hub with fresh and engaging stories, curated local calendars, and local dynamic roadmaps to help founders navigate their local entrepreneurial ecosystems with ease. We've done all the hard work for founders, so they only need to go to one trusted source in their market to find all the local information they need. My name is Jennifer Sutton. My friends and family call me JJ. I'm the founder of OrangeWIP and will be your host today. And we have Ethan Foulkes, founder of Magic Button Labs, as our guest today. Welcome, Ethan.
Thanks, JJ. Nice to be here.
I'm so glad. I've been looking forward to talking to you and meeting you. I think we've exchanged some dialogue on LinkedIn, so I'm so glad that you are a guest. So why don't you just start out and just tell us about how in the world did you become a founder?
Accidentally.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've spent my career in big companies. So I started off in the IT world doing everything from dial-up modem support to network security and architecture. And then I landed accidentally as a professional poker player for 10 years, which was
What?
cool. And
Oh,
yeah, there you go. So that was fun.
wow.
Um, that was cool, and I learned a lot of that. That's actually, I think, where I learned most of my the lessons that I carry over with me into the business world. It was a
Oh,
fascinating experience. I eventually went back to the real world,
yeah.
and I didn't want to go to IT. So I took a job with a family friend who had always told me he'd hire me. I went into the food importing world, and I just paid my dues and did the rounds in every functional area, so operations and logistics and accounting and purchasing and selling, all that stuff. And throughout my tour through the different departments, I'd be like, hey, I think there's better tools and systems we could put in place and processes. So I ended up just kind of tuning each department and connecting them together. And that led to moving up to the parent company and running IT and supply chain. And then I said I was going to strike out on my own, and that landed me. I did a little consulting, and I got sucked into a big boutique consulting firm in the Atlassian space, software development world. And that was fascinating experience to see how agile tooling and consulting is done on the biggest playing fields in the world, which was cool. But my heart has always been with the entrepreneurial journey and startups. And so I took the leap and I left a really nice, stable job, and I joined a startup that had just raised a couple of $1 million. And I got to build the team from the ground up, run operations and product. And that was fascinating. And, you know, it didn't last. That's why I started my own thing. So there's a whole story there. Sure, we'll get to. But finally, leaving that experience, I just realized that, like, it's finally time to do my own thing and not get sucked back into anybody else's world, which is typically what happens. So I've got an accountability group that I said, hold me accountable. I am not going into anybody else's world this time. And so that was the start of Magic Button Labs.
I love it. And what does Magic Button Labs do?
I didn't know when we started it. Now I know that it is a venture studio. When we started it, it was just my way to manifest my beliefs into the world. Now I know it's a venture studio. That means we incubate different companies that come out of Magic Button Labs. Right now, my focus is on Scale Kits, which is a simplified approach to operations. So how do we simplify and automate operations around the customer journey through a company?
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All founders need that, right? All startups need that.
Yes.
Um, so what's been the most rewarding aspect of your journey?
Um, I think looking backwards, what's been rewarding for me, it's not always clear in the moment, is just the learnings. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, sucked back in somebody else's journey, but that means like you're playing on a bigger stage than you'd be doing by yourself. And
Yep,
you're for me, it was, I think, the opportunity to see the biggest, like the patterns that I loved and I wanted to mimic, but also the patterns that I definitely didn't want to mimic.
that's
So
right.
um, that was it.
So gaining
Yeah.
all that experience, right? Just to see that
Yeah.
exposure. So okay, so a little mythbuster moment here. So what do you think is the biggest misconception or misperception people have about being an entrepreneur or being a founder? And how would you debunk that myth?
Well, I'm
Now that
curious
you've
what
ventured out on
your
your own.
yeah. Well, I'm curious what your other guests have said. That's what I want to know after. But I think my answer is you think that being the founder or the CEO or doing your own thing is like you're not going to have a boss and you just have different bosses and more of them, right? Like it's a long trek through entrepreneurship to get to that other side that you imagined was just going to be that perfect
I call it
life.
the freedom, like the freedom to get to the freedom
Yeah,
of, but you're right. That's been a very repetitive, um,
figured.
answer to most founders are like, yeah, you think that you're gonna work a 3-day work week, or you think you're gonna shut off at 2 o'clock, or, like, that doesn't exist, and you're held accountable. The more that you grow your team, you
Yep.
you're accountable to other people. People are taking a risk on you, but you're also
Yep.
taking a risk and wanna invest in those people that are working for you. So, yeah, it is.
100%. Yeah, and my
Yeah,
my wife's been amazing at, calling me out on my crap, right? Because, now I've learned not to make promises that I can't keep, right? It's like, "Oh,
yeah,
yes, I'm doing this for flexibility," and we do have you do have flexibility in certain
right,
ways, but then you have less flexibility in other ways.
right. Yeah, like I call it time and money are just shifted to you. Like, that you're just a mindset shift
Yeah.
of,
Yep.
um yeah, and how to slate that time in, how to schedule and I call it, blocking strategy. But then also it's like, no, no, no. I was listening to a founder this morning at a minority business accelerator kind of a presentation of all these founders, and he's like, my I was coming upstairs to make lunch, and and he's like, my wife was like yelling at me, going, "Hey, if you're up here, we're not, money is not happening. So I'll make you lunch. Like, go back downstairs, keep working
Yep.
because
Yep.
you're billing out at 2 and 300 or $500 an hour. Let me make lunch for you." So it's like, just time and money are just
Yep.
perceived differently. Um,
Well, that's awesome too. That story is cool because, I think that's another, I don't know, myth, but like it's so important if you have a partner to be on the same page. And it's such a different life. And like I had my concepts. Like I've always worked with startups from
right.
peering in from the outside, but you don't know what it is until you've experienced it. And
All
so
right.
like, yeah, I wish I'd done a better job like knowing what the journey was before, but how could I? And then I could have
Yeah.
better communicated and got on the same page earlier.
Yeah. I like I feel that. I thought I would when before I started Bright Marketing, which is was my first company and still is. It's, we started that in 2013. But I interviewed all these like other founders of what do I need to know? And I got some really good advice, but nobody talked about the rawness and like you're gonna go through hard. They talked to me about like the stages and phases of like scaling and what to look out for from more of a business, but nobody talked to me about the emotional, like, and mental health and just like how to get your mindset shaped. And I just, 10 years ago, it people don't like to talk about that. And I was like, that's one of the reasons I wanted to start OrangeWIP and Hello Chaos was how do we get and elevate some of those pains and normalize it, that it's okay to talk about it, of you're going to
Yes.
feel alone. And
Yes.
yeah, and we talk about the aloneness, but it's like, no, 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 no. Because people are like, okay, I know you're off doing it on your own. I was like, no, 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 no. You don't understand how alone you will feel.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of parallels for me in my journey with being a dad and having three kids, because
mm,
everyone also tells you like how amazing it is. And it is. It's the most
most
amazing thing.
right,
And then they tell you, oh, it's hard and haha. But then it's like that's glazed over. And it's like, no, no, but it's also incredibly hard at the same time. And I
right.
had to learn to be like, it's okay to hold both of those things in your
That's right.
head at the same time.
That's right. And
Yeah.
how to work through it, how to like evolve and grow and um, teach ourselves new things.
And I,
And y'all, that's a great parallel. Parenting
yeah,
to, because you've birthed a baby
yeah,
with a startup or a company, and
yeah.
it's all new, and and it's
And
it can be easily broken.
yeah, and I love that you're shedding light on the entrepreneurial journey with these questions too, because it's the same thing. Like you need to normalize it and make sure it's okay to say it, because I didn't feel comfortable in the beginning telling my friends like, "Hey, I think I might suck at being a parent and this is really hard and I feel like a zombie." And it's the same thing as the founder of a startup where you're like, "Hey,
Yeah,
you get out there and you're supposed to rah 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 and everything's great." And it's like, "Yep, and it is, and
yeah,
it's what I wanted, and it's also incredibly hard."
right, right, right. Um, yeah, no one told me about how hard it was going to be, like brain sweat and
That's right.
heartache.
Nice.
So okay, speaking of that, how do you deal with the stress and challenges? Do you have like
Yeah,
little tricks, methods,
I
routines that you put in?
yeah, I honestly, the number one thing I've learned is breaks.
Mm,
When you're like gaining your skills early on, when you're working in someone's company, I always tell everyone there's a time and a place and a stage of life to put your nose to the grindstone,
mm,
right? So early on, it's like, yeah, man, I worked 80 hours a week, and then and then I had a kid and 60, and then another kid and 40, and then you really have to embrace that at a certain point in your journey people are paying you for what you know, right? Like they're
mm,
not paying you to press the button, they're paying you to know which button to press. And you have
right.
to embrace that that's a big part of your value, that you need to surround yourself with people that are in that other stage or have that
Mhm,
passion to crank out the work. And you have to put time into your life to be able to step back and get perspective, which for me, like one, just doing that in small, like I'm
yeah.
frustrated or I'm stuck, step back, take a walk, go outside. But I've also found like I make Mondays my no meeting day, like no
Mm,
scheduled recurring meetings ever, because it's the most wonderful day of the week to do that if you can. Because over the weekend, you're decompressing and you're
yeah.
processing all these thoughts and ideas and takeaways. And so if you step into that Monday routine where your team coordination and kickoff and planning meetings, you're right back into the grind and the slugfest of the day to day. And it's like that's probably the day where you want to sit down and have a 2-hour conversation or spend half the day whiteboarding or do your
Mm,
writing or something like that. So that's I hold Mondays dear.
that's a that's a great tip. That's become my Friday.
Yes.
I probably should switch it Fridays and Mondays around.
Try switching, let me know.
That's great. All right, so I have to ask you, you said that, the online poker, right? That you did that for a decade. And what lessons learned have from that journey? How did you translate that into the business, like your
Yeah.
own business? I am fascinated with that.
I have endless lessons. It's like that thing that defines you that you kind of relate everything back to, right? Like
Yeah.
if you were a cycler, I know somebody that relates every part of a business to a bicycle, things like that.
Yeah.
Um, the number one skill that I learned. So I played online poker for about 8 years, which is multi tables, 14 tables at a time, a
Oh
thousand
my
hands an hour.
good
Uh,
God.
That's insane. That was at the heyday. But I think the ultimate lesson was actually at the tail end, like the last 3 years where I was playing online tournament poker, because the fascinating dynamic, what happens is you're sat at a table, and you're given this stack of chips. And when you sit at that table, you have to sit down with a blank slate and gauge the table. Like, who's here for what reason? What skill level are they at? What are they trying to get out of it? And then a dynamic forms at a table, right? So there's a table captain, and there's somebody everybody's targeting, and then sometimes there's friendly banter, sometimes there's unfriendly banter, sometimes you're engaging, sometimes you're stepping back. And so that's a dynamic, and you might spend hours in this dynamic, and all of a sudden they break the table because tournaments evolve and people break out, and then you land in a new table and you're in a mode, right? You are the table captain, or you're playing this role or this dynamic, and you need to do a clean slate and go release everything the mode that I'm in, everything I've been thinking about, go back to a blank slate, which is actually a hard thing to do,
That
because
is
otherwise,
so
yeah,
difficult. Oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. So otherwise you'll be in the wrong mode. Like
Yeah.
you'll be trying to still be the table captain when there is a table captain, or you're used to being the big stack and somebody else is the big stack. And so, yeah, just learning to do that reset emotionally, right? Like
Yeah.
emotionally and mentally is just that's kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like,
Yeah.
that's take the break, just
Yeah.
step back.
You gotta and do the mental reset to go, okay, I gotta enter this room
Yep.
in a whole different mindset. Ah, which we should do as, owners, leaders, like as you jump from, meeting to meeting or, purpose to purpose, like I just need to take a mental, like, I do this when I do research. I have to do like moderating focus groups and stuff.
Yep.
I can't bring any bias into the room. So
Yep.
I'm guessing it's similar to that of like I've got to do a complete clean, and I'm just
Yes.
monitoring it with no subjectivity.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm sure I know you're crazy busy, right? So you've got these back-to-back meetings some days, and you might be moving from a meeting where, it's a relationship building
mm,
type meeting, and that's a completely different dynamic from a more stable team road mapping meeting, which is
yeah,
completely different from a sales call. And it's
that's
like,
right.
entrepreneur, we can't structure those perfectly. It's like, no, that it had to happen at 2. So it's
Right.
happening at 2.
Like, all right, where am I walking into? What
Yep.
is this? What's happening?
Yep.
Um, okay, so what has been your greatest, what we call aha moment, like that breakthrough moment, or like something that had a significant impact on your business
Sure.
or on
Yeah.
yourself or on yourself? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. My biggest aha is very clear to me. It happened when I moved over to the consulting world in the Atlassian space. I was working for a very large boutique consulting company, and I was running professional services. So there were actually 4 of us running a big team of 50 to 100 people with 50 to 100 in-flight projects. So it's like heavy at scale.
heavy, yeah.
Um, and it was fascinating to me in the beginning because you're working with huge companies, solving big problems, billing a lot of money. But over time, what I saw was that we're just rebuilding the wheel every time. And we're
Mm,
just never was it a perfectly circular wheel, right? It was kind of
right,
misshapen each time, but it was a wheel. And I got fascinated with productization, which is the idea that if you're an expert at something, like, how do you get your expertise? There's really no way other than you spend, a decade in the trenches and you
right.
get really good at it.
The
Um,
10,000 hours, right? And that
1,000 hours, which I think may have been disproven in some studies. But anyways, we get the point, right? And so productization is this idea that 80% of what JJ, as an expert in marketing, like,
Mhm,
actually doesn't have to reside in your head and sort of be mystically revealed. It's like, no,
right.
we can put it in a box, and it's not perfect, but it's 80% and it is completely scalable. Everybody can use it. You can
Mhm,
bring the cost way down, but you can give it to way more people. You can do it faster. You can make them happier. And my aha was, after I did this for the first time in like proved it out. Like, well, I make way more money delivering this way than that way.
Right.
All of that. I learned that more often than not, consultants don't want to productize their knowledge,
Mm.
because I think it's an identity crisis. Like their identity is wrapped up in being that expert. And so,
Mm.
and some people lean into it and go, oh, wow, you mean instead of helping 5 companies at a time, I could help 20 or 100?
We've done that. I mean,
Yes.
that's how we had to like that was a big mental shift for us, I think. And Chandler's heard this story, our producer sitting here by point over there. Um, we've had to do that. Of 3 years ago, we kind of sat down and we're like, we've got a macro process, but I
Yes.
I was having to touch all of it,
Yes.
and I was like, we had to sit down and go, no, 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 we need to, and I love the term. I didn't even think about it in that way that I productized. I just
Yes.
really kind of streamlined and made it much more consumable and scalable that I don't have to be involved, that we've
Yes.
got
Yeah.
the processes and the systems in place that if you ask these questions, if you follow these disciplined methods
Yes.
and discipline your thinking, we can train
Yeah.
that. You follow the process, we can help 100 companies, right? Kind of
Yeah.
do the same thing. So I never thought about that productization. That's
And it's a
fascinating.
lot of work. Yeah, it's a lot of
It's
work.
a
Doing the meta model and
yeah,
delivering it out of your head is actually very easy, but all those boxes and all the little pieces down below is actually incredibly hard to do, but the
yeah,
payoff is huge. And so, by the way, I kind of learned that on my own going through that journey, and then
yeah.
afterwards, I found Alex Hormozy and $100 million offers is like that's the Bible on this topic, and I was like,
Well, I
oh,
need to go
that's
read
what I've
that.
been telling everybody. Yeah,
Like, I
it's
need to go
amazing.
read. Oh,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
great. Say it again. The Alex.
100 million dollar offers by Alex Hormozy.
Okay, we're gonna
Yep.
hashtag that one. Um,
Yeah.
all right. So, okay, the poker thing's pretty cool. But is there any other like any surprising fact or something interesting listeners would love to learn about you that's not on your resume? It's not, anything else you'd like
I
to
already
share?
gave it away. I
I
already gave
know,
it
like
away.
you
It's the
already gave
poker
it
thing.
away.
I hide
I don't
I
think
hate
anybody's gonna top that.
That's right. That's right. I hide it on LinkedIn, although I love talking about it now, but I just put it as Remy.net. I actually built, I was playing poker professionally and doing really well. I also built the first fish finding database for online poker. So that's what I say. There was a 10-year period
Yeah.
in my career where I was running Remy.net, but mostly 80% of it was playing poker and
Woo.
20% of it was building this first application that allowed us to find like the most profitable tables. So you're playing the
Ah,
14 best tables, not 14 random
just
tables.
random.
Yeah.
Whoa. All right. So obviously you went into the tournament and you were winning. I mean, obviously, is it lucrative? Is this uh, are
I
you
would
making a
not
lot of
advise.
good money? I mean, like,
Yes. Yes.
uh,
My timing was perfect. I wouldn't tell anybody to do it now. I didn't strike out to do that. I was playing in college before it was popular. I'd read all the books, I deconstructed it. I was playing these low
you're like
stakes
Rain
and
Man
then
going in there with like not
like
counting cards,
don't ask my
remembering
wife.
cards. Yeah.
Don't ask my wife. Yeah, I've got yes, there's a bit it's part math and it's part like psychology and interacting with people, but
So you're like the
yeah,
master of
it's
like people skills.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's that yeah. Anyway, so it was one of those things where all of a sudden, if you remember, it came out on the Travel Channel, and
Yeah.
then instead of like these small games where you're buying in for $5, you can buy in for 200, and then 1,000, and then five. And I was like, oh, I can. I wonder if this would work in the bigger stakes. And I just started playing, and I was like, oh, yep. I've done more studying on this, and it was one of those like this would be silly to stay in IT because I'm making way more doing
Right.
this. So. Yeah.
You need to write a book.
Maybe. It's
Yeah.
harder now, though. It's harder. My timing was perfect.
You're like my time as a online poker specialist. All right. So what's been your biggest like, oh shit, like you hit a wall the biggest challenge. What was that, and how did you overcome, or maybe you're in it? We've
Yeah,
talked to founders
no,
who are like, "Jennifer, I'm in it. I'm in the shit moment right now." So,
I'm on the other side. The oh shit moment was the last company I was at before starting Magic Button Labs, which was that startup that had
mhm,
raised some money. And the oh shit was, so at the time my expertise was operations and product management, software development. So I came on board to own those two pieces,
okay.
and I did that. I put in all my productized tools. I hired an amazing team, built them up. We built the product,
Mm,
put all the operation stuff in place. And then I found out that the sales pipeline they had told me was there before I started wasn't actually there.
mhm.
And they didn't know how to sell it. And so I rolled up my sleeves, JJ, just to figure out marketing and sales in 6 months, just to learn how to do those things. It should be no
Yep.
problem. And
Oh,
that
it's
was
a
the oh shit moment.
complex. Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't do it. Yep. So that was the oh shit, and that was the inspiration for me finally saying what I talked about earlier. Like, no, I'm going to do my own thing so
Yeah,
that I'm in control of it, so I can control the pace of it, so I can avoid these mistakes that I've seen done, and
yeah,
I'll do it my way for better or worse, right? I'm not
right,
saying I know and I'm perfect, but I didn't like that I wasn't able to do the things I wanted to do to try and save the company. There were just other factors at play, and
right. Well, you
so
didn't control
yeah,
all the cards. Now you control all the
correct.
cards. Yeah,
Control the cards for better or worse.
yeah. Do you like that? Do you like that, poker river?
Yes,
I
I love
try.
it.
I try.
I'm all in on this,
Uh,
JJ. I'm all
um, well, if you had to hit rewind, would you do anything differently?
nope. No,
Very good.
because each time that I would set out to do my entrepreneurial thing, like I've been starting businesses since I was a kid, right?
Yeah.
But each time I'd get sucked into in my professional career, I'd get sucked into somebody else's journey. And that's what I was saying. In at the time, I would sometimes get frustrated with why do I keep doing this? But looking back, I realized like there was no other way that I was going to learn all the things that I've learned and have all the experiences that I've had, which now like looking backwards I'm like, oh, that's why I was there in that messy thing, or that's why I
Yeah,
jumped into that thing I was clueless on, because it taught me this thing that I'm now
that's right.
manifesting in this way. I don't
That's
think there
right.
was any other way.
Lessons learned. Moving
Yep.
forward. It's all
Moving
that's the
forward.
game, right? Um, all right, so if you could pick 2 things about your business that you would change right now, what would they be and why?
What would they be and why? One, we're recently now ready to take on some investment money,
Hmm,
which I would say I wasn't ready to earlier. Now we're ready, and so if I could snap my fingers and do that yesterday, I would do that. But all I can do is start having the conversations, which I
right.
am doing now, which is cool. What would be the second thing? Second thing that I would change or do differently,
Yeah.
I think when I started Magic Button Labs, we have a really big vision to productize all the functional areas of expertise that a company needs, right? So
Hmm,
marketing, sales, operations, accounting, IT, all of those things. In the beginning, I was like, great, let's just start all of them all at once. And I pulled a lot of people around us because I'm good at that.
yeah.
And basically spread all of us too thin, and then had to pull back and focus
Yeah, how do
on
we
three
focus?
things, and
Yeah.
then finally on one thing. And I wish I'd just known not to do that earlier. But again, like I don't look backwards and question decisions. It's like you do the best that you can at the time with what you
Yeah,
think the dynamic is and what the game is, and you go forward.
that's right. Um, so I mean, you've worked with a lot of startups, founders, entrepreneurs, and you've also worked with these big consulting, and I'm sure you've surrounded yourself with some really smart people. Is there a piece of advice that you've received either from another founder or another business leader that you really took to heart that you'd like to share with others?
Yeah, the conversation comes right to mind. There's a good friend of mine, Matt, who I've never worked with, although we've tried to more than once. and we couldn't make it happen. But he's definitely one of my mentors. I've had a lot of long conversations with him, and I remember at one time telling him, like, I'm ready for the next thing, and I'm ready to be the CEO of a company. And it can't be this one that I'm in, so I must go somewhere else. And he just goes, Ethan, why do you want to be a CEO? And I was like, oh, because it's the next thing and the biggest thing. And he was like, do you have a better reason than that? And I was like, no. And he said, well, look, you're going to hate to hear this, but he goes, I think you're actually meant to be a COO. You're meant to be somebody's right hand, and you're meant to be the wind beneath their wings and support them on their journey. And I was like, screw you, Matt. You don't know me. Well, not really, but like,
Yeah.
and then I
You're
stepped
like,
back
no.
and he said, yes, he said also, and this really hit me. He goes, also, you don't want to be tied to one thing. He's like, you're all over the place with energy around everything. And like being the CEO of one company forces you to put everything into that one thing. And so I sat on that for a long time. And that's why I went to somebody else's startup. And ultimately, although I am the CEO of Magic Button Labs, that's a universe I've crafted to allow me to actually be the wind beneath the wings of multiple founders of the companies that we incubate, and to help multiple other founders.
So you took that gift and figured out a way to how to make it work for you. Yeah. But it's
Yeah.
it's funny you talk about mentor. We talk a lot about mentorship and you know, having coaches, and the fact that that was the right coach or mentor for you, that they were that blunt and that direct. Because there's a difference between
Oh
having
yeah.
a cheerleader, where you need cheerleaders in your
Yes.
life, but you also need
Yep.
coaches, and coaches sometimes have to give you news you not ready you might not want to hear.
Yes.
But it
Yep.
makes you better. Yeah. So speaking of
Yep.
cheerleaders,
It
who's
does.
the biggest cheerleader in your life?
I mean, definitely my wife. She is a true cheerleader in that, like, she'll listen to the details and often has good feedback for me, but ultimately she's just like, you are who you are, do your thing. We've got your back.
Yeah.
And like I couldn't do that. I couldn't do any of this without her. So
Right. Oh, shout out to Ethan's wife. Okay, so if you had a piece of advice that you would give another founder, what is your piece of advice?
oh, yeah, sure. This is at the heart of Magic Button Labs, and like this is the core thing, which is that my belief is out in the world, all of the inputs that we get on what success looks like, all the models for success, they come to us through successful companies. Meaning, like, what is the right way to do marketing? What's the right way to do sales? What's the right way to raise money or do operations? You're only going to look at companies that are way far down the journey in doing things right.
Mm.
And the problem with that is that when you're a founder or you're an entrepreneur, you're not there yet. That comes later. You're trying to get to product market fit. You're not yet there. And so I see endless misapplication of what is good advice for when you're at and beyond product market fit, misapplied to people that are much earlier on their journey. And that's at the heart
Oh,
of Magic Button Labs. Of we've got a
that's
framework that helps people understand and not misapply that later stage advice earlier on.
right. That's that's just a aha for founders. I don't think founders or startup or even small business owners who are really trying to scale. Um, Having, I call it, like, precision targeted processes or decisions that they're making, or precision resources applied. Uh,
Yep.
so
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you the most common one. So we call our framework the 1-4-14 framework, which just helps people realize you're going to get one customer, then another three, Then you're going to nail down your hypothesis on your ICP, your ideal client profile, your go-to-market strategy, and your pricing. And you'll probably get it wrong, but you're going to test it on 10 customers and circle back. And the most common misapplication I see for this is like people start a business, and what do? We sit down and we make business cards and we start a website and we worry about the name and the logo and we make a PowerPoint deck and prototype and all this stuff. And I'm like, you don't need to do any of that. To go get that first customer, you just need to pick up the phone and start calling people and you say, here's what I'm doing and why, and can I help you, or do you know somebody? And go get one customer. Like, you can do all that stuff in the next phase or even the one after.
Right.
We go too early to those things that look like the right way to do them.
Yeah. No, that's great
Yeah.
advice. And usually we kind of say that we like seeing, especially in the founder, very early startup, of get out there and kind of already get your elevator speech of who you are. So when we do like a brand package branding, they can answer our questions with more authority, and also it's proven. Like, you already got your checks. Like,
Yep.
you've already gotten all the questions. Because otherwise, when we sit down with we'll pepper them with questions, and they're like, "Well, I don't know. I'm sure I can change that." Or I was like, "You might need to even see if this is have you even researched the competitors? Like, go and do some homework before
Yep.
you spend money on all the other things that makes a brand." So I
Yep.
love that. That's great advice. All right. So if we met a year from now and we sat down for drinks or whatever, coffee or cocktails, what would we be celebrating?
We would be celebrating the fact that Magic Button Labs has truly become a Greenville, South Carolina venture studio and has put together funding, and we are actively helping entrepreneurs through that journey to get to product market fit.
Well, let's do it. We're manifesting it
Let's do
right
it.
here. Right
Right
here.
here.
um, that's fantastic. I love it. Okay, so what keeps you up at night then?
I hate that I'm going to give you this answer, but I don't have problems sleeping anymore. And that is the beauty of doing my own thing finally, because
That's
I've never
great.
lost I've never lost sleep over how to do things. I've always lost sleep over the dynamics that are outside of my control, like the internal politics at the big company that you just know are
Yeah.
wrong, but you can't do anything about it. And as soon as occasionally, once in a while, it's something stressful, but by and large, I sleep so much better being like, this is the world that I wanted to craft. And like, there's
Right.
lots of stuff that stinks about it and lots of stuff I wish was better and different, but I'm like, but I chose this and this is what I wanted. And so let's go to
Yeah.
sleep and wake up in the morning.
You're doing the right thing. You're in your
Yeah.
space. That's fantastic.
Yep.
Um, all right. So here's my question for you. If you had to sum up your entrepreneurial journey in just one word, what would that word be and why?
Yes, I was ready because I listened to other episodes. And so, it's fulfilling. Like, I feel fulfilled at the end of the day, no matter what it turns into, if it turns 10x or 100x or 10,000x, like I'm happy and I'm doing what I've wanted to do.
You're a well-fed founder.
There we go.
There we go.
What's
Love
your
it.
word, JJ?
Mine was serendipitous.
Oh, that's right. I
Uh,
remember.
yeah. Or accidental. But yeah, like, I never thought I would ever start a company, run it. Like, I always thought I would be the wind beneath somebody else's wings, and
Yep.
grow an agency or whatever, and help and just be a really strong leader, um, and build somebody else's brand. And just I I had an opportunity to step away from the agency I worked for. I was frustrated,
Yep.
similar, like, I have no decision making. Like, this is not how I would approach things. The organization structure is not serving the business community. And because I had to I was responsible for all the customer satisfaction surveys, and I was at the
Yeah.
stage where I had to meet with all of our clients, and they were just going, "You're, you know, we're not being served well in a traditional framework." And I wanted to change how we were structured, how the teams operated together, our systems to like productize,
Yep.
systematize things. And they were like, "No, we're good." Like, and so I had clients that had left the agency, had gone elsewhere, and they were calling me just like and just flukishly in the same week while I was getting this feedback from the leadership of
Oh, wow.
and it was, I mean, so like it was just very serendipitous of I'm sitting there going,
Serendip.
is this really a place for me? I don't see I'm working 90 hours a week. Now I have 4 children. And at the time, when all this happened, it was my kids were uh ages like 2 through 11, 2 through 12,
Wow.
around that.
That's
But
insane.
but I was working 90 hours a week. I was traveling 2 weeks every month. So I was gone. I was missing birthdays, anniversary, like I was missing all this stuff. And and I was frustrated at work because I all the burden for a lot of stuff was on me. And I'm like, but it didn't have to be. If we would have just reshaped our structure, we would have been a stronger
Yep.
agency and kept, retain clients or whatever. So after all these like conversations with our leadership, and it was like, nope, 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 nope. And I was like, well, okay, well, then I need a raise. Like there is like this is crazy amount of just pressure and weight. And they're like, nope, we're, that's not gonna happen. I literally left the office and I had a text from, like I said, an ex-client which said, "Hey, you got a minute? Would you ever
Nice.
consider would you ever consider going out on your own?" I mean, it was like what and I was like, I
Boom.
had never because when you're happy, you think, okay, I'm fulfilled. I'm in this. I love the agency. I mean, I loved it. I loved our clients. I loved what we did. I was very fulfilled. But I was frustrated, right? Because I also saw
Yep.
like I could project a year ahead and go, we are going to lose 80% of
Yep.
our clients if we don't change.
Yep.
Um, and and so yeah, it was just like all of a sudden that day it was like I call it the windows and doors in your mental house, they start opening. And when that happens,
Yeah.
then other people can enter. And it was literally I got that text and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is weird. How crazy is this? How serendipitous is this?" And I said, "No, I'd never thought about that until today." And they were like, "Let's talk tomorrow. I might have an opportunity." And within like the next 24 hours, another, an ex-employee, an ex-peer who had left the agency was now, director of marketing somewhere. I got a text from her. She was like, "Hey, you ever consider going on your own?" And so I had gotten within that week, I was like, "You know what? I don't know how this works. I guess I'll do a contract, be a freelancer." And within that week, they had sent me proposals of what that would look like. And it ended up being, it's like I said, I was working like 90 hours a week. And the proposals were no more than, it was like 10, 15 hours a week, but it was 70% of my salary just with those two
So they built
contracts.
your business for you. They basically
Yeah.
gave you your business model. They're like,
And
here you go.
so that's right. And so it was, my husband's like, next week you are putting in your, your notice. We'll figure it out. And you get time. Like either you work these, you get time back that you have missed. Um, you can go interview if you want to go work for another agency that maybe it's a better fit or but it was funny out of the options not to start an agency was not even one of those options. So
Right.
that wasn't even like in my mindset. So I took the two like contracts and stuff, but then when I announced that I left the company that was more public, my phone rang off the hook, not just with clients, but it was all the peers I had worked with, creative directors, research designers, media people, brand strategists, account planners that I'd worked with in 25 years who were like, "You're on your own. Okay, I need you to come on board. You need to build a media plan for this. And then I started shaping. I was like, you know what? I can create an agency that serves
Yeah,
the business community in a much better way and feeds um, these independents way more, just way better and for everybody, and really build kind of the community that way, a creative marketing community, but doing things in the right way.
that's
And yeah, and but then like by the end of that year of 2013, that's when I started. But it was not even in like wasn't even
that
then an option. I mean, it never even crossed my thought. So yeah, serendipitous.
that's an awesome story for serendipity. Have you ever read the book Who Not How?
So,
Have you have you ever read the book Who Not How? Dan Sullivan and Benjamin Hardy?
no.
It like that. The only thing I keep thinking is you're telling that story. Like I boil it down. It's one of our Magic Button Labs DNA library books, and basically you have a different way of getting there. His thing that I honed in on was procrastination. So he makes the point that if you're procrastinating on a task, it's because it's something you're not meant to be the one doing, and you're procrastinating because you don't know how or you don't want to. And all you need to do is go look for a who, because there's somebody out there that wants to do that. And then he says, the moment you
Such a
find a
good.
who,
Yeah.
they will be a who for you and you'll be a who for them. It has to be a two-way street. And he says, and the moment you find that person, you'll find that your vision of what you can do gets larger.
That's right.
Because now there's more resources, and it's like, so you kind of stumbled into it just like serendipitously,
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
like people being like, and I'm a who for you and we're who's for
And
you.
we
It's
all
like, that's
became
so
who's. That's
magical.
right.
Yeah,
It was fantastic. And yeah, like we've grown ever since, but it was never, like I said, it wasn't planned. But I've loved the journey.
that's so
Even through
cool.
the ups and downs and the hardships. I mean, we've had some, dark days and stuff, but it's like I've learned from those. How do I move forward? And it also helps us, like it's given me a different lens when, I mean, I'm sure it does for you too, like when you've, working in big corporate, but then also starting out and being a part of that startup, you have a much different perspective when you work with other founders, or I'll call, aggressively scale up businesses. Of like, I can go in and like, dude, I can totally relate to you from a psychological perspective. Like, you
Yep.
like, yeah, I get it. It is now
See you.
real for me, and it wasn't that way when I worked for somebody else.
Yep.
Um,
That's
yeah.
cool. I'm glad we got to connect and learn your story, and I'm glad we're in the same backyard.
I know we need to do an in-person
Great.
meeting. Um, but I know we're out of time. I'm always amazed at how fast these things go. I mean, I've enjoyed the conversation. Your tips and advice have been, invaluable. I was like, Chandler's over here going, yes, yes, he's taking notes. But thanks for hanging out and chatting. But before we go, where can people connect with you, learn more about you and Magic Labs? How do you want people to
Yeah.
connect?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, today the best place to find me is on LinkedIn, Ethan Foulkes. I'm sure we can drop it in the show notes.
We will
We're doing
totally.
a big rebrand over the next probably 30 to 60 days, where we'll make it clear with our web presence the difference between Magic Button Labs, the venture studio, and then Scale Kits, the simplified approach to business operations, which is one of the companies that I'm most focused on right now. So
Yeah.
that's all coming.
Fantastic. Awesome. I can't wait. We will definitely tag and push that out. Um, Thank you, Ethan. I appreciate your
Thanks,
time
JJ.
today.
Like,
For everyone listening or watching us live, thank you for joining us. And just remember, this podcast episode will be published on Sunday and available on your favorite podcast platforms. So subscribe to Hello Chaos, like, comment, and share, and help us build a more connected entrepreneurial community. And check out Ethan's information, especially if you're a startup or a founder. He's got some good info. So go check out Magic Button Labs. Hello Chaos is one of the many resources brought to you by OrangeWIP. That's OrangeWIP, WIP for work in progress. OrangeWIP is a multimedia a company dedicated to serving founders and entrepreneurs in affiliate cities. We are in 3 markets today, in South Carolina, the upstate, Greenville area, Midlands, the Columbia area, and the Low Country, the Charleston area. We'll be coming to and expanding to other cities near you. Just your email to join our community. We are a one-stop content hub just for founders and an innovative digital zine experience. So come check us out. If you'd like to be a guest on our podcast or support us, send an email to hello@orangewhip.com. Y'all, thank you for tuning in to Hello Chaos. It is where aha meets oh shit. And I'm your host, Jennifer Sutton, JJ, and I'll see you next week.